In the world of stupid fast four-doors, the Audi RS7 has been one of the most lust-worthy vehicles that money can buy. Back in the day when the first generation came out, it offered performance that would embarrass most supercars, but wrapped it in a sleek sedan body that offered space for up to 4 adults and room to carry their stuff if you were going to go away on a long trip. So for 2021, Audi is following it up with an all-new version of the RS7. It's based off of the new A7 and S7 Sportback, fortified with an extra 40 horsepower under the hood, so we have nearly 600 horsepower underneath the hood, standard Quattro all-wheel drive. And Audi says this new version, in addition to looking just as sexy as the previous generation, should get to 60 in around 3.5 seconds. So if you guys are in the market for one fast four-door car that can beat a lot of supercars out on the road, how does this new 2021 model stack up? That's what we're here to find out. Now, a couple years ago, I tested out a 2019 Audi A7. Remember, this is based off of the all-new version of the A7, and it kind of left me feeling like there was something left to be desired, and this 2021 Audi RS7 is designed to basically address that. Now, first, let's start off with under the hood, because as you guys know, with any Audi RS product, the magic starts underneath here. This is the company's 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 that's fortified by a 48-volt electric or mild hybrid system, which also Audi says will kind of assist the engine at low speeds to kind of fill in the gaps between those turbochargers. Now, speaking of which, it's got a hot V configuration, so the turbos are nestled right in the V. That also helps mitigate lag. And this year, Audi has upped the power by about 40 horsepower versus the previous generation. At 591 horsepower, basically 600. This makes it one of the most powerful, four-door cars you can buy. And it also basically makes it almost as powerful as the previous RS7 Performance that offered around 605 horsepower. Torque is around 553 pound-feet. It all goes out through an 8-speed torque converter automatic. Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system, of course, is standard. With launch control, you should be getting to 60 in around 3.5 seconds. Now, for those of you who are wondering, how's the fuel economy of this vehicle? Well, you better make sure you put premium gas in it, and it's rated to get around 15 in the city and 22 on the highway. RS7s are pretty heavy vehicles, and as this one sits, it weighs in at around 4,900 pounds. But closing the hood, let's talk about the styling of this new RS7, because when I first saw the A7 and even the S7, there was something about it that kind of left me feeling like the car didn't look aggressive enough. You can see Audi has obviously addressed that with this RS7 because the body of this vehicle is around 1.7 inches wider versus the A7 and S7, which gives it, again, a more aggressive stance. You can see you've got the Audi single frame grille here at the front and center. This one here also has the black optics package, which blacks out a lot of the chrome trim. I actually think they went a little too overboard with the black because, as you can see here, the Audi 4 rings are blacked out, and it kind of gets lost in this big sea of black with the grille. You also have a blacked out RS7 badge. I think the rings should have remained chrome, or there should be some chrome strip here to kind of break it out. I do like the Audi full LED headlights. This have their laser light technology for the high beams. They're also adaptive. You have LED daytime running lights. You have a sequential design to the turn signals. No fog lights down here. Instead, you have some functional vents, because remember, this big V8 is going to require a lot of cooling. There's even a functional vent right here. And overall, let me know in the comments below, this front end to me is much more aggressive looking versus the standard A7 and S7. And also remember, if you guys don't want the Sportback, Audi also offers an RS6 Avant, which has the same motor, same front end, it's just different at the rear. That's probably the one that I would get because it's a stupid fast station wagon. Now, looking at the side profile, at 197 inches long, this is about an inch or so longer versus the previous generation. It also rides in a 115-inch long wheelbase. Audi didn't really mess with the dimensions too much because look at this car. It really has an amazing stance to it that really makes this car look super exotic and also makes it, again, resemble a very sporty cars, very supercar-like cars. Now, looking at the wheels of this vehicle, you can see this one here with the black optics package has a 22-inch wheel. A 21-inch wheel is going to be standard on this car. You also have these massive brakes. Audi says that a 21-inch wheel is the only size that will actually clear the brakes because they're so massive. This one here with the 22s, riding on 285 width tires, makes this, again, have plenty of grip because this is Quattro all-wheel drive. My tester is missing the carbon ceramic brake package for like another $8,500. This, again, has the standard steel or iron brakes with these massive 6-piston calipers here with the RS logo and the red painted calipers. That's, of course, extra. And air suspension is going to come standard on every RS7. That's going to, again, make this car very sporty to drive in the corners, but also make the ride quality more tolerable, which we'll talk about as we go later on to the driving scene. You can see above, or here on the roof, there is a panoramic sunroof, although I'm surprised it doesn't kind of take up the entire roof area. I also think Audi should have painted this black, especially with the black optics package. They blacked out all the window trim here but it would have been nicer if this area here was black. I imagine some owners are probably going to change that. And at the rear of the vehicle, just like the A7 and S7, the rear look of this new generation, I'm still not quite in love with it. I think it has some frumpy looks to it from certain angles. I don't particularly love the way the taillights look, how they kind of connect over here. Being this one has the black package, you have the black, emblems here, the black 4 rings, you have these black exhaust pipes you can see here with the black trim for the rear diffuser. And of course, this one here has the sport exhaust, which let me fire up that engine. You guys can hear how it sounds real quick. So here in America, we don't have those particulate filters that the Europeans get that limits the sound. So we'll fire this up. Let's hear how it sounds. I may have stood up a little too soon, but that's okay.
No, I did. I revved it again because I knew you were done. I pressed RS again and it turned off. I guess that's the secondary RS mode.
Yeah,
it turned off all the stability and shit.
Yes.
So I was hoping that you would take the rev limiter away, but
nope, no rev limiter.
Why they gotta kill our fun?
I know, right? So pretty mean sounding car, although I was surprised about the rev limiter. I wish it revved a little bit higher. Now, this spoiler over here does deploy. You can also make it deploy with a push of the button inside the cabin, or it comes up at speed to help with the aerodynamics of the car. And then when you open up the cargo area, a lot of space back here. That's what makes the R7 super practical and appealing for enthusiasts. You get around 25 cubic feet of space, and if you fold down the back seats, Audi says it'll expand it to right around 52 cubic feet of space, which is pretty comparable to a lot of those subcompact SUVs. So again, very practical car that offers an insane amount of performance. So clearly there's no denying just how beautiful this car is on the outside, but what about the interior? Audi obviously is going to make some slight tweaks to the RS version to make the car feel a little bit more special. But otherwise, if you guys are used to a lot of these Audi cabins, you're going to find a lot to like in here, starting with the fact when you first get in, these seats. These are the RS specific sports seats. My tester has just a black interior. The seats themselves, they adjust in like 12 to 14 different ways. If you guys want massaging seats, you actually have to lose these really nice looking sport buckets with the without the adjustable headrest, and Audi will only give you a black interior with an adjustable headrest, and the seats look a little bit ordinary, so I'd probably skip the massage function. These are at least heated and cooled, and they offer a 2-person memory function. Now looking at the cabin at a glance, now my tester, as you can see, with the black interior color combination and the gray contrasting stitching and the diamond quilted leather, looks very, very impressive and really sporty. I like the overall look of this cabin. It has the latest version, of course, of Audi's MMI Touch interface. I love this exposed carbon fiber twill trim. It's actually a $500 upcharge, and you can feel the actual carbon fiber in the material. It just feels really expensive. I've never seen that before in other vehicles. Now you can see there's the door of the vehicle. It has that beautiful carbon fiber trim, real aluminum trim, leather stitching. It's even soft padded over here. My tester has the standard Bang & Olufsen sound system. This is not the optional $5,000 Bang & Olufsen, which this one already sounds great, but if you're a true audiophile, tick that option box to get 19 speakers and like 1,800 watts of power. When I shut the door, this does have a soft close feature. That's part of the executive package that my tester has, or you can also close it the old-fashioned way. And the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, which is very much what I expect of a German car. Now here's the key fob for the vehicle. It's the current Audi key fob. It feels really nice in your hands. It's also a really nice size. It says RS on the back there to remind you you've bought the special Audi. And Audi puts the button here to fire up the engine over here on the center console by the shifter. Now you can see when the vehicle starts up, you hear that lovely rumble of the V8. And keep in mind, this is the only A7 model. The RS7 is the only one that comes with a V8. The S7 now has been downgraded to a twin turbo V6. Push this little RS button here, or you can also use the drive mode selector. RS is the quickest way to put it into sport mode. When you do that, you can hear the exhaust baffle opens up. Sadly, it has a very low 3,500 RPM rev limiter, but this model does have the sport exhaust. It sounds really good. I just wish it was a little bit louder. So there are times where I wish the car was a little bit louder. And you can see when it's in RS mode, the gauge cluster looks really interesting. You can also obviously adjust the way this looks by putting your music there. You can even put the GPS there if you'd like. It almost looks like two tire tracks or two, tracks on a road where you left black marks. It's a really interesting design. Take it out of RS mode, you can see it goes back to the normal design. There's the auto start stop for this vehicle. You can also change the way this looks by putting it into a smaller area. So it's really very much part of the Audi MMI virtual cockpit interface. This is the next generation where it has an OLED screen. It looks very nice. Now let's talk a little bit about the interior materials. And Audi has always been a class leader there, although they're starting to fall behind. The RS7 definitely spices things up a bit with this genuine leather that's on the dashboard, which is really nice. You can see there's a nice head-up display over there that also shows your traffic signs, your driver assistance information. I love the carbon fiber. There's a lot of piano black plastic trim here, but you can see the piano black plastic does resist fingerprints, which is nice. There's also beautiful interior LED lighting in here that you can customize the lighting. The Quattro badge over there lights up at night. Audi's multi-touch interface here now has 2 screens, technically 3 screens, a 12-inch virtual cockpit display here. That's not a touchscreen. Touchscreen here and there, where you have a 10.1-inch screen here and an 8.8-inch screen down here. I've pretty much showed you guys how this works before, so I'm not going to go too much into depth with this, but down here you can basically find your audio or your climate settings, your heated and cooled seat setting. Your heated steering wheel setting is actually over here in the screen. This one does not have the perfume that wafts a scent in here. You have to go for a different model. The RS models for some reason don't offer that. This display over here is where you're going to find things like the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is nice. I like how crystal clear the resolution of the screen is. I like how quick and snappy it is. The Audi interface also works pretty well. If you go to vehicle, this is where you're going to find all of your vehicle settings. You can adjust the seats, settings, your driver assistance stuff, parking information, your drive mode selector. The RS monitor is an interesting one. It shows you the condition and the state of the engine oil, the coolant, the sport diff, the trans fluid, and the brake rotors, whether they're warm or hot or overheated or cold. So I found that to be very useful. Which is nice. I like how the screen also gives you a haptic feedback, which is also great. When you put the car into reverse, you can see full 360 camera that my tester has. It also gives you a 3D view where you can kind of go around the entire vehicle and you can see the graphics and resolution is just absolutely killer. Although I wish the car itself was painted in the same red as my actual tester. That's kind of a small little nibble. Everything else about this cabin though is very easy to use, and I like how there's a wireless phone charger and it has wireless charging. That all just makes for it to be easy to use and seamless when you get in. You can see there's the GPS function, which has the Audi Google Earth interface. You can also put the Google Earth in the actual virtual cockpit here, so you can have 2 screens. This is still one of the best ones in the business. I mean, only Tesla also does the satellite imagery, but Audi was one of the first. It still looks great. Still works great, although a lot of you are probably going to end up using Waze anyway, so that's kind of a moot point at this point. Down here you can see your engine stop button, your stability control off button there, your drive mode selector, which you can cycle between comfort, auto, and dynamic, and then there's the RS1 and RS2 mode where you can kind of customize how you want that to look. Over here you can turn on and off the Audi PreSense. You have a volume knob over here. This controls the 8-speed automatic where it has that electronic shifter. You have electronic parking brake, more piano black plastic trim over here, and this is nice and padded, and you have a rather shallow storage area over here. It's got 2 USB charging ports, a wireless phone charger like I said, and then the seats, earlier I mentioned they're very comfortable and supportive. If you want the massage seats, you're going to lose this wonderful Recaro look to the buckets. Instead you'll have an adjustable headrest and the seats look rather ordinary, so I'd skip that. I'd also probably get the brown leather option that Audi offers, or the black leather with the red stitching. The glove compartment you can see here is big. It's stamped and lined with felt. And then above me, Audi offers a somewhat pano-sized sunroof. It doesn't actually go into the back seats of this vehicle, but overall the cabin is pretty much what you expect in a $100,000 car, although the design is a little bit ordinary. The one thing I wish Audi did is I want the steering wheel to look a bit more special. The diameter is a little too big. I also wish it had a flat bottom design. I've seen other Audis with a flat bottom steering wheel in the Alcantara, but for some reason this one just has a more ordinary look to the wheel. But compared to its competitors, this interior is easy to use, it's comfortable, it's spacious, it offers so much tech in it, and it's also pretty easy to see out of. Now hopping into the back seat of the new RS7, this is where Audi also made some improvements this year, because since this car is significantly wider versus regular A7 and S7, they added a 5th seat back here. The previous generation RS7 didn't actually have a middle seat, and Audi says they actually lost customers because it didn't seat 5. But now, of course, you see there's an armrest here that folds down, or you can sit 3 people across. Legroom back here is not bad also. Audi says you get around 37 inches of legroom. There is a massive hump here So that's going to intrude for middle passengers. You can see there's quad zone climate control back here, heated rear seats, which is nice, rear seat air vents. The materials, of course, are really nice. You have leather stitching, real carbon fiber, real aluminum. So overall, the back seat is good, although I wish, again, the panel roof doesn't come all the way to the back here, but there is some pretty bright LED lighting. So if you do actually need to carry adults back here, this is going to offer more space than some of its competitors. So nearly 2 years ago, Audi loaned me the keys to the all-new generation A7. It's the second generation model, and for a car as nice as the A7 is on the outside, I was actually left feeling like there was something to be desired for with the A7. I mean, the A7 had that 3-liter turbocharged V6, which was electrified with the mild hybrid system. And now, of course, Audi has sent me over the RS7. And this car, I'll be honest, when I first saw its sister vehicle, the RS6 Avant, at the LA Auto Show in 2019, I was basically salivating like crazy, because here we have a nearly 600 horsepower fast wagon that has the practicality of an SUV. I mean, my mind was blown that Audi brought it here. So obviously now with the RS7, it's not necessarily the body style I would go with, but this is still undeniably a gorgeous car. Remember, it goes head to head with cars like the M8 Gran Coupe Competition, and of course the AMG GT63S 4-door, although the Audi is significantly less expensive, as much as $25,000 less versus the comparable Mercedes, and 20 grand or 15 grand less than the BMW. So this is without a doubt a car that's going to get enthusiast blood pumping, because it is the original, one of the original supercar embarrassing 4-doors. Now let's try the launch control in this thing. I haven't tried it yet, so it's in Sport Plus right now, or it's in RS2 mode. Floor the brake. Oh! Oh! Ooh! And keep in mind, there's some snow out on the ground. Audi sent me this car with winter tires on it, but it should do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. That felt closer to 3 seconds. In fact, Car and Driver, I remember, just recently tested this car, and they got 3 seconds with the 1 foot of rollout. Ooh, which it is a fast car still. Once those twin turbos kick in, the car literally feels like it's launching. You can feel the front end lift of this car because it's so incredibly fast. But you also feel a very subdued driving experience. I mean, even though this is an RS car, it's not going to beat you up. It's not a race car, even though R probably stands for race. It's still very much, even in its most aggressive setting, in RS2 mode, which is kind of similar to what, you know, BMW does with their M1 and M2 buttons. This car still feels like a luxury car. The ride quality with these adaptive dampers is still very smooth. Even with these massive 22-inch wheels, the air suspension really soaks up the bumps really well. It's just an impressive all-around daily driver. And of course, with that ridiculous speed, you have to have impressive brakes. And this car has them. I mentioned earlier a 6-piston. They're actually 10-piston calipers at the front. This one has the conventional steel rotors instead of the carbon ceramics for $8,500. But man, for a 5,000-pound beast, this thing really will get out of its own way. And it also has the sport differential and the 4-wheel steering, which means if I test it out here, oh God, that thing got totally sideways there. Wow. Oh my God, that gets my blood pumping when an all-wheel drive car gets sideways. It literally drifted like a rear drive car. I expected a rear drive car to do it, yet it did it in such a manner that's so controllable, has such finesse. I knew this car was slightly tail happy there in RS2 mode. That's with the stability control in its sport setting. But man, this thing literally puts a huge smile on my face. Even though it weighs almost 5,000 pounds, you wouldn't know it because it just hustles through the corners. I mean, the adaptive dampers, the sport differential, the 4-wheel steering. I mean, look at this steering. It's so quick and responsive and precise. Oh my God, it feels like I'm driving a sports car, even though this is a 4-door hatchback with an impressive trunk space, relatively roomy back seat, good visibility throughout, and a comfortable ride quality that just gets quiet. I mean, I'll take it out of RS2 mode here, just put it into its regular sports setting. The transmission goes into a nice subdued, relaxed shift. Remember, this is a conventional 8-speed auto. I will admit that it's not as responsive as it should be. This is the ZF 8-speed, and I feel like it's it doesn't want to get out of its gears. It's not shifting fast enough. I mean, when you're in the RS2 mode, it does shift quickly, but I can't help but think if this was a dual clutch, would it be faster? The transmission in the Mercedes AMG GT 4-door, I found it to be quicker shifting. It's a 9-speed multi clutch transmission type vehicle, or type transmission. I found that to be a little bit more responsive than this 8-speed, but there's still no denying it. Really, you don't notice those shortcomings unless you drive the competition, because this very much feels like a sublime vehicle. I mean, in today's world of electrification, this is one of the last great modern gas engines that you can buy today, because it's got that hot V configuration, because it has very little lag. Ooh, and when the turbos kick in, this thing just, oh shit. Oh, I mean, it'll reach a top speed of 190 miles an hour when you have it, when you have the right tires, when you have the, the high performance package that you can get. 174 miles per hour is the standard top speed, and it feels like it'll reach those speeds all day long. This car is just a joy to drive. And Audi seems to have fixed their steering. I mean, before, Audis tend to have a very, non-communicative steering. They're just numb and devoid of feel, and that's clearly not the case. I mean, it's still not the heaviest steering, but Audi has done a phenomenal job with just tuning this chassis. Let's go back into sport mode. I just want to try the launch one more time. Oh. Wow. So I haven't driven the Audi A7, or the S7, but the S7 no longer has a V8. It loses around 150 horsepower to this car, but you save like $25,000, $30,000. But this is so worth it if you guys want to have the ultimate 4-door sportback design. What an incredible machine. For me, the RS7 is a near perfect 4-door. But the problem is Audi offers several models besides the RS7 to entice you if you've got the money. The RS6 Avant is a wagon that looks better in my eyes. It's more practical, more trunk space. It's also a little bit cheaper. And then of course there's the Audi RS8, which is their SUV that's gonna give you that higher seating position if you want it, which is a little bit more expensive than this car. And then of course there's the Audi e-tron GT that's coming out that has a starting price of around $100,000. It's basically as fast, if not faster, if you get the RS version. There's so many choices in the Audi portfolio within the Volkswagen Porsche portfolio. See there, I had it in automatic mode, and you can feel the stability control cut power. It will not let the tail step out in this mode, but in RS2 mode with the stability control in its sports setting, it will, and it will scare you if you aren't used to those kind of tail out shenanigans that you expect in a rear drive car, yet this is an all-wheel drive car. Now, let's talk a little bit about the gas mileage, because now that it's got that mild hybrid system, Audi says this thing should get 15 in the city, 22 on the highway. Out on the city roads where I'm driving like a complete crazy person because I just can't help myself, this car got around 14 mpg, which is not wonderful. Now, I did take it out on the highway on a longer trip, and I noticed this car actually got 25 miles to the gallon. 25 miles to the gallon in something like this beats the EPA number by about 3 mpg, and it really shocked me with the amount of range it could do, considering it has a 19-gallon gas tank. So if you are driving this thing like an eco mode, whatever, and you're just driving it very conservatively, it can get decent gas mileage, so that's something to keep in mind. The seats, I also find them to be comfortable and extremely supportive. The visibility is excellent. This one here has the Audi driver assistance package, so you have the full speed range adaptive cruise with the traffic jam assistance. It works well. It doesn't change lanes for you, however. I just wish that it was standard. At this price point, it should be standard, yet Audi still makes you pay like $2,500 extra for it, which is kind of an insult. But overall, I'm finding very little about this car that I don't like, and I actually think I might like it more than the Mercedes, even though the Benz has a better transmission. I haven't driven the M8 Grand Coupe Competition. Beautiful car. I mean, there's so many choices in this segment if you want a fast 4-door, but this is very much one of the ultimate 4-doors you can buy if your pocketbook has enough funds for it. So I remember around 7 years ago when Audi first introduced the RS7, I remember thinking to myself, wow, that is the kind of performance four-door family car that I aspired to own because it just offered supercar levels of performance. Now, I actually had a chance to drive a first generation RS7 Performance probably back in 2016 when those cars first came out, and I was blown away. Now, after spending the week driving the all-new version, the second generation model, I'm pretty happy to report back that it doesn't disappoint. This car continues to be incredibly fast. It continues to be incredibly classy. It continues to be a very practical four-door car with a huge trunk to boot. And if you guys are looking for the ultimate, daily driver that you can basically drive in all weather conditions, including snow if you put the right tires on this thing, that has enough room for your family, all their stuff, and can still embarrass a lot of sports cars at traffic lights, the Audi RS7 is still one of the best ones you can buy. But really, what gets me sad about the RS7 is the fact that Audi offers so many different versions of this car, because as much as I love this vehicle, I love the styling of it, I love the all-around package, there are certain drawbacks to the RS7 that I find hard to ignore. First of all, I personally would look at the RS6 Avant because it saves you around $5,000. It looks a little bit better versus the RS7 in its sportback design because that one starts at around $109,000. Now, my tester here, stickers for around $125,000. The base price of this car is $115,000. Keep in mind, a base A7 will start at around $70,000, while an S7 will be around $90,000. Now, my tester is relatively light on the options. It has the black optics package, which includes the 22-inch wheels, the driver assistance package, that red paint. All in, this one at $125,000. Is relatively, expensive, but it is a good deal cheaper versus its competitors like the BMW M8 Grand Coupe Competition that starts at around $130,000. The Mercedes AMG GT 4-door starts at around $140,000. But really, Audi's own e-tron GT is one that I'm particularly excited for because that is the Porsche Taycan underneath. That car offers similar performance. It's actually a little quicker if you go for the RS version, and those are around $100,000 or $140,000. So there's a lot of choices out there if you have around $120,000 to spend. And keep in mind, you could also buy something like a Tesla, a Model 3 Performance, and that offers similar 0 to 60 performance, and it's half the price. So the problem with these powerful gas cars is we're kind of hitting a ceiling on the performance they can offer. But electric cars are kind of coming in and they're changing our perception on how much you should spend in order to get the speed. While this car is still impeccably built, it's still classy to look at. It draws attention everywhere because of its beautiful design. You have to wonder, should you bother spending over $120,000 like this, or should you just go electric and get something nearly as fast or a little bit faster and spend a little bit less money, or should you just go for the RS6 Avant? I mean, personally, I love gas cars. I would probably look at the RS6 Avant before I look at this car, but there's no denying just how perfect, near perfect this car is if you really want to have that sportback design. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2021 Audi RS7 Sportback. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.